Unity is a game engine, and a pretty good one at that. I personally love it. A lot of other people do too. But like many other game engines, a soulless corporation lies behind it. One that many people are quite angry at. In this video, we're going to try and find out, what are people mad about? Why are they mad? And has the CEO of Unity potentially got himself several lawsuits and maybe even a prison sentence? From my understanding, the story goes like this. Everyone is minding their own business. Some execs over at Unity start selling shit tons of their stocks. This will be important later. And nothing really of interest is going on, until a few days later, September 12th, 2023. At approximately noon, Unity announces some pricing changes through this handy-dandy blog post. The blog post opens with the words, "We are introducing a runtime fee." If you didn't know, Unity Runtime is a part of the Unity game engine. What does it do? I am not quite sure, but basically, Unity is using it to charge developers 20 cents every time a player installs a Unity game. It's not quite as insane as it sounds. There are requirements before that can happen, that being that the game has to have made $200,000 or more in the past 12 months, and the game has to have passed 200,000 lifetime installs, both of these being lifted to 1 million if you upgrade to the Pro or Enterprise versions of Unity. Already, this is screwing over a lot of people. For example, freemium games that often have high player counts but don't generate a whole lot of revenue per player. Mobile games are also going to be a victim of this, as many of them follow the freemium model. This article only brought up more questions than it ever answered. For example, how is Unity tracking installs here? How is Unity tracking the revenue that a game makes? Could someone, theoretically, set up a script that repeatedly installs and uninstalls a game out of spite? The questions keep piling up, and soon the flames of this monstrous dumpster fire start to do their damage to Unity. Their stocks take a horrific nosedive almost immediately, so Unity sends in their firefighters to keep the flames at bay, and arms them with fucking spray bottles. The article is soon updated, and it gets much, much worse. First of all, the changes take place on the 1st of January 2024. They specified that charity games, bundles, and games made for QA testing would not be affected by these changes, and would not count towards the number of installs. That is about all the good news that came out of the FAQ and now updated blog post. I want to talk about the game Crab Game. It was a big hit a year or two ago, even overtaking Just Chatting on Twitch at its peak. Danny, the YouTuber who created Crab Game, could owe Unity roughly $3 million, assuming he earned $200,000 off the game. Now you may be thinking, oh but Joseph, the changes they announced don't come into effect until January of 2024. That's a valid point, but you see, this is where Unity starts to dip its itty-bitty toes into the waters of legal. Wait a minute. Because many developers already had quote-unquote contracts for royalty fees via the flat rate that it costs to buy Unity Plus, which was a subscription service that users were required to buy if they made over $100,000 from their game within a year. But Unity decided to make these changes retroactively. Unity wants to charge games for installs that are made before these changes were even announced. Every Unity game that you love, Cuphead, Subnautica, Tabs, Ultrakill, fucking Among Us, will be affected by these changes if they follow through with them. Have I mentioned that Unity isn't even sure how installs will be counted? Their plan is to leverage our own proprietary data model and provide estimates of the number of times the runtime is distributed for a given project. I briefly mentioned bad actors who could maliciously install and uninstall games to put immense cost on a developer. Unity has now decided that instead of installs they will track individual devices, but this obviously isn't foolproof. You can simulate devices and use other technical doohickeys to evade this. 4chan users are already working on scripts to do exactly this. Unity's solution to this? We do already have fraud detection practices in our ads technology, which is solving a similar problem, so we will leverage that know-how as a starting point. So basically, I don't fucking know, we'll figure it out. Another problem is that since runtime is being tracked, games installed on piracy websites will still be costing developers, even if the game is taken down from its respective store page entirely. And Unity just says that they will work with any developers who have been a victim of piracy, so that they are not unfairly hurt by unwanted installs. Again, basically, contact us and we'll decide if we want to help you or not. Nothing here feels thought out and properly planned. This decision wasn't made by a team of intelligent, critical thinkers who figured out all the flaws in this stupidly convoluted plan. John Ruscitiello, the current CEO at Unity, was a former CEO at Electronic Arts. That's right, EA, you cannot make this up. It's become recently apparent that all Johnny here is doing with the shareholders and executives is not a whole lot. This narrative has been pushed by many people that John was like, I've got a genius idea, let's charge developers every time someone installs a game, and then provided no other explanation to anyone. This whole complicated scheme feels like Johnny had this amazing idea and told everyone to just make it work. It's a long, convoluted scheme that needs an essay's worth of explaining to tell everyone how it works. You see, it's all a... No one using Unity can feel safe anymore, at least while we have this guy on top. This shows us that Unity isn't beyond bringing out a new, stupid policy solely because it could make them more money. If they could get away with this, what's to stop them from charging $50 per install instead of 20 cents? Unity has always been known for looking out for the little guys, lowering the barrier of entry and costs for game development. But because of these new policies, the little guys are being very much fucked over, since the smaller indie studios who are barely breaking even are the ones who are going to be affected most by this. Meanwhile, big studios that bring in millions, they probably won't even notice. And even then, those big studios will probably leave as well, seeing Unity's reputation and reliability as a company take a nosedive. Have you been looking forward to a game release recently? Because if that game was made with Unity, it's probably been delayed for this reason. The game studios can't trust the company behind the engine, and so are jumping ship, porting to alternatives such as Godot and Unreal, which have unironically spiked in popularity because of this. I myself am not jumping ship just yet. While Unreal is tempting, there is hope, and it's all because of Unity retroactively charging developers for installs the game has made over many years is not to come without its consequences. First of all, there are a handful of game studios who have the power to take Unity to court for pulling the rug on agreements that were made years ago. Second of all, remember those 4chan users I was talking about? They're almost a good thing. You see, games suddenly having a stupidly disproportionate number of installs is going to shove the stupidity of this plan into Unity's face, because the solution to the problem of malicious installs isn't to leverage their fraud detection practices in their ads technology. It's to pick a monetization strategy that isn't so exploitable by certain people. Microsoft will not be having this shit when Unity starts asking for their royalties for games on Xbox Game Pass. No one wants to deal with a company that calculates their royalty based on, trust me bro, I did some guesswork and this is how many installs you got. Yeah, it might have got a little screwed up by all those spoofers, but trust me bro. Unity going down this route either ends with getting sued into oblivion by this legal minefield, or dying entirely because of the lack of revenue that the user base brings in. Because yeah, most of them will be gone. A lot of them are gone already. So our only hope is really that sometime after Unity either dies on that hill or dies getting there, Microsoft or some other company will pick up the pieces and not make the past 3 years I've spent learning Unity completely obsolete. But what if a lot of people are thinking about the possibility that Unity is performing this stunt as a way to introduce a less bad, but still jarring policy. I'll do something slightly more reasonable instead, because that was my intention in the first place. There is some level of merit to the story, because as I mentioned at the start of the video, John Ruscitiello and all the other execs sold a ton of their stock a mere few days before they announced this. Some people theorize that John was trying to make a profit by shorting out his own stock, selling it for a high price, and then buying it back for less after the stock tumbled due to the announcement but for a cheaper price, which is apparently called insider trading, and it is apparently kind of illegal. But as many people pointed out, John did not do a good job of this, since the stock did not drop by a particularly insane amount. Granted, because the wave of cancelled subscriptions to Unity Plus and Pro have not hit yet, but even if this is the case, John Raviolier still needs to be fired, because the number of users jumping ship cannot be worth the 5% revenue share that some people are theorizing is to come. Whatever the execs were thinking, they clearly didn't realize that this will be the final straw for many people using Unity, and that even in this unlikely case, the future of the company is grim at best. So basically, the fate of Unity really just lies in which company scoops up first. As for now, all we can really do is sit and watch the crash happen. So this was a very different video from the stuff I usually make. My next video, which is in the works right now, may very well be the last video I make using the Unity engine. That video should be out in 2 weeks. After that, I'll try not to disappear for another 3 months. I promise, but I'll see you next time.